Hi everyone, this is Karen from the Historical Society of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. In this month's video, we're going to be talking about one of the oldest churches in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Located on what is now Germantown Pike, near the intersection of Trooper Road in East Norriton, stands an old church, an old stone church, known as the Old Norriton Presbyterian Church. It's one of the oldest churches in Montgomery County, and we're not entirely sure exactly what day it was erected, but there are verbal accounts of this church dating as far back as the 1600s. In the late 1600s and early 1700s, Dutch Calvinists and Scottish and Irish Presbyterians started entering what is now Norriton and Norristown region of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. At that time, when they were entering the area, the lands were still owned by the Lenape Nation. The Old Norriton Church is currently situated on Germantown Pike, and it is said that it was chosen for this area because, although it was not Germantown Pike at that time, it was a relatively popular road at that time for people going in and out of Philadelphia. And part of it is said to have been built based off of an old Lenape trail called Manatawny. In the late 1600s, there are verbal accounts of congregants meeting in each other's houses and later in a wooden church in what is now Norriton. But there's no paper trail dating that far back. The current stone church that still stands to this day on Germantown Pike doesn't have a date stone. And the congregation is first mentioned in the Presbyterian records in 1735. There's also a graveyard at the old church, and the earliest stone that we can see to this day dates back to 1740. However, there are several unmarked graves in that graveyard, and we're not entirely sure how far back some of those graves date, but the church verbal records claim that it dates back to the late 1600s. Some of the more notable individuals who are said to have worshipped from time to time at Old Norriton Presbyterian Church were Benjamin Franklin and David Rittenhouse. Although Benjamin Franklin didn't live in Norriton, being so close to Philadelphia, and especially during the Revolution with the Continental Congress and George Washington's army being encamped at Valley Forge, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Benjamin Franklin did in fact pass through the area. David Rittenhouse, his parents, Matthias and Elizabeth, actually were the ones to sell the land to the church for the purpose of creating a structure for the people to worship. This land was deeded to the church in March of 1737. The land had originally been purchased by the Rittenhouses from Isaac Norris, who Norristown was named after. In 1730, there was a split in the church, and one piece of the congregation moved not too far away to what is now Ridge Pike in Eagleville, where they constructed the Lower Providence Presbyterian Church. In 1758, the two congregations merged to become the Norriton Lower Providence Presbyterian Congregation, and they worshipped alternately between the old Norriton building on Germantown Pike and the new Presbyterian Church on Ridge Pike in Eagleville. The Old Norriton Church was used as a temporary hospital during the Battle of Germantown. This happened in a lot of different buildings in Montgomery County, and it is said that some of the unmarked graves in the graveyard right behind the Old Norriton Church do actually belong to Revolutionary War soldiers who died in that battle. During that battle in Germantown, there are records indicating that the church had sustained some damage, and the Assembly passed an act on September 17th, 1785, allowing a lottery to take place to raise money to help make some repairs to the church itself. In the late 1700s, more land was purchased to build a new meeting house near the original site. In 1844, the interior of the Old Norriton Church changed. They added a high pulpit and box pews. In 1822, the Norriton and Providence Presbyterian congregations became incorporated. In 1903, fire completely gutted the interior of the Old Norriton Church. And it wasn't until 1940 that they actually were able to go back and replace everything that was inside, including the high pulpit and the box pews, and they set everything up as it was originally in 1844. The Old Norriton Church was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1979. Today it is shared with the Lower Providence Church and the Norriton Presbyterian Church, which has its building behind the Old Norriton building. And they share it for special events such as special occasions, 4th of July, and most notably Christmas Eve and Easter services.